Hi, I'm Mr. White from Novi High School, and I'm here to help you out to understand the APUS History Test and the AP European History Test for 2020, which has moved online and seen a few changes due to the COVID-19 outbreak. For US history, a lot of the information has changed. We'll get more into that in detail in a second, but the highlights are that your test is now on May 15th at 2 p.m. Your test also doesn't cover the same amount of information as a normal DBQ, nor is it at the same length. It's only going to be about 45 minutes and be a singular DBQ question. For European history, similar changes. Your test is on May 13th at 4 p.m., also a single DBQ question, and also does not cover all course content. Let's break down those changes in depth. What this means for US history is your test date is on May 15th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Your test will cover content from AP Units 3 through 7, which corresponds to the time frame of 1754 to 1945. That's right, that means you won't have to get too much into the settlement of the Americas, you're not going to see any questions about Bacon's Rebellion, and also you won't see any questions about the Cold War or recent American history. Instead, you'll be basically focusing on the founding of the Republic through World War II. Your test question is a singular 45-minute modified DBQ question, with an additional 5 minutes, but only for uploading. European history has similar changes. Test is on May 13th, which is a Wednesday, at 4 p.m. This means European history students will be taking their test on Wednesday, May 13th, while APUSH is Friday, May 15th. Your test will cover content from AP Units 1 through 7. Which corresponds to the time frame of 1450 to 1914. This time frame includes things like the Renaissance, the Reformation, and everything else through early modern and modern European history, except for it stops right before the outbreak of World War I. So you won't need to talk about the World Wars, interwar period, or any of that. AP European history also has a singular 45-minute modified DBQ question. You'll notice that both APUS and AP European history will not be covering all the content that's normally included in their course due to the fact that many schools were shut down due to the COVID-19 outbreak. For APUS and AP European history, this means that neither of these courses will get a complete understanding of World War II, meaning that this means very little to either of you guys. APUS students won't know the Franco-Prussian War, and AP European students won't know World War II. This is a bummer, but this is the world we live in. So at this point you're probably wondering, what's going on with this new modified DBQ? While the thesis and contextualization categories of the DBQ rubric remain exactly the same, a lot of other things have changed. The evidence category now only requires that you use 4 documents to support your argument, out of traditionally what has been 6. This means you only need to use 4 out of the 5 they're going to give you. However, it also requires that you now have 2 pieces of outside evidence. The analysis and reasoning category now requires you to source 2 documents, but gives you a point for each, and the complexity point stays the same. I suggest at this point you write only 2 body paragraphs for your DBQ, and we can explain why in some detail. Let's break it down piece by piece. This modified DBQ rubric now has 10 points. This means that comparatively, the thesis and the contextualization is actually worth quite a bit less. However, that doesn't mean you shouldn't take it seriously. Make sure for the thesis you're answering the question directly, and you include a line of reasoning as well as answering that question. For the contextualization, as always, use specific language, mention trends and terms to prove to the readers that you have a good understanding of the period that the question is asking you about. Evidence will now be worth 5 points. This is considerably more than the traditional 3 points that evidence is worth. You're now only being given 5 documents for your DBQ, not 7, and you only have to use 4, not 6. However, you can also earn up to 2 points for outside evidence by giving 2 pieces of outside evidence beyond the documents. There's also an additional point added in that you'll find it very easy to earn. As long as you can use 2 documents, you actually earn an additional point. This means that this additional point, the and 1 point, at the very, very top of the AP rubric up here, is actually just very easy to earn, added in, and is mostly only beneficial to students. Next up is sourcing. Sourcing now requires you only need to source 2 documents as opposed to 3. The good news here as well is that you receive a point for the first 2 times you source. This means even only sourcing once in your essay still earns you a point, even though you can earn 2 for sourcing twice. Sourcing 3 times or more might be helpful, but it will not earn you more points if all are done correctly. Finally, the complexity point. Nothing has changed with the complexity point this year. That means the same old ways of earning the complexity point remain available to you. This includes using multiple perspectives or themes in your argument, using what I like to say is both sides of the argument language, like similarity or difference, continuity and change, cause and effect, as well as making connections, which is what used to be called the synthesis point. So I wanted to give you a possible DBQ essay format. Again, this is only a suggested essay format. You are not required to use this format, but I feel like this would be helpful to you. Of course, you want to start with an introductory paragraph. This would include your contextualization that makes connections, as well as your thesis that includes your position and a clear line of reasoning. Ideally, I would suggest having your thesis address 2 core concepts, because, that's right, we want 2 body paragraphs, I think, for this modified DBQ. Each of those body paragraphs should address one of those core concepts from the thesis, or address one concept in a couple different ways. And each of these body paragraphs should use 2 documents to support your argument, because 2 times 2 adds up to 4. By the same time, you should also be sourcing one of those 2 documents in each of your body paragraphs, so when you're all said and done, you've sourced 2 documents. Finally, each body paragraph can include 1 piece of outside evidence, so by the time you're done, you have, that's right, 2 pieces of outside evidence. This means that it's possible, if done correctly, to earn all 10 points in the modified DBQ across 3 paragraphs. This would be ideal. Obviously, it's a little bit more difficult than that sounds. Don't forget about the possibility of including a conclusion. I highly recommend that all students include a conclusion. As a reminder, there's no points that can only be earned in a conclusion, but the conclusion is a great way to earn points that you may have missed earlier in the essay. For example, the complexity point and the thesis point are commonly earned in the conclusion, and I highly recommend using your conclusion to secure or solidify your chances at getting those 2 points in particular. Finally, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments below. Stay home, stay safe, and good luck on the AP test, Novi. This is Mr. White, signing off.